All right, well, let's get started. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. Appreciate you taking your time out today to learn more about Zluri. I am Loretta Jones. I'm the VP of Marketing, and with me is Michael Tsai. He is the head of product. And today we're going to take you through our new feature, multi-level access reviews, and we're very excited to kind of show that to you because there's a lot of um, manual processes and issues with access reviews, and we think that our feature is going to be able to make that a lot easier for you and your company. So if you've ever been through an access review, this maze is probably something that is familiar to you. Audits are still very complex today, as I'm sure you're aware. There's a large number of apps, there's users, positions, and all of these things really pose a problem in streamlining access reviews, right? And so many times users and IT users, as well as business users, feel like they're kind of getting stuck in a maze of trying to wrangle getting from point A to point Z in access reviews. And that leads to a lot of delays in timelines. Also, what we also hear and what we notice is that at each stage of the review process, there are different multi-levels and sign-offs, and that also causes confusion and complexity. And that's one of the things that many of these things are things that Zluri is going to straighten out and refine and automate the processes for you. So one thing really quickly, just to go over some industry stats, we actually worked with a independent third-party research firm called Censuswide, and we produced this report earlier this year. But what we found is obviously part of the issue with the state of access reviews today is that typically in many companies, about 30 people are involved in access reviews, which is, when you think about it, is crazy, and that's where a lot of the time delay and time lag comes from. About a third of the companies say that the process is extremely manual. So even though, there's all this technology around, companies are still manually doing access reviews. And companies say that about a third of the companies say that their biggest challenge is complexity. And we'll go into that a little bit because there's kind of two levels of complexity. There's the actual organization complexity, and then there's the actual user complexity. But if you'd like to get more information, more detailed information on the state of access reviews, we'll give you a link to it towards the end of the presentation. But essentially, I think the key takeaway here is that, even though there's technology abounds, access reviews are still largely done in a manual process, and that causes time delay and also manual errors for compliance. So as I mentioned before, complexity is kind of the name when you're looking at multi-level reviews. So let's just really quickly look at the operational complexity. And so, for example, if you're looking at the operational complexity, you have hundreds of users, you have groups, you have hundreds of tools, and hundreds of roles, excuse me. And a lot of that is very time consuming to do the manual data collection on that. As you can just imagine, it's exponential in a company of any significant size. But I think on the right, what is even more interesting and causes issues in manual reviews is reviewer complexities, right? So typically you're seeing siloed reviews across stages. And what that means is that typically the line of business needs to be involved as well as IT. And the reason being that is because the line of business typically knows kind of who has access to what and who needs access to what. And the IT person or the IT department typically don't know that. So they kind of have to work together to make sure that all of that information is streamlined so that they can determine who should be approved and who should not be approved. But you might have, 5 to 6 people and maybe even up to 10 or 12 people, depending on how large your company is, in the line of business working with IT. And so that's the downstream effect, I think, of having organizational complexity. So typically companies are dealing on two fronts with the complexity with access reviews. It's operational and it's reviewer complexity. So a lot of companies out there, and you and some of the folks on the call might be actually using traditional tools to kind of address the complexity that I just talked about. And here's where we kind of see where traditional tools fall short. And let's start just on the left with kind of incomplete visibility. So what do I mean by that? So let's just take an example. What if you want to do an access review of, let's say, your Google Workspace, right? So traditional tools might not have direct access to Google Workspace to ingest the user data, the group data, the roles, etc. So they really just don't have access to get the level of detail that is required to have a streamlined access review process. And the reason for that is because they really weren't built to get the depth of integration that is required when you're dealing with today's modern SaaS stack. So when you look at the second phase, which is the integration, the setup complexity, right? If you're trying to use the traditional tools to get this integration and set up visibility, you might even have to connect to multiple tools and stitch them together, right? And that's essentially where you get the complexity, because you're basically looking across different applications. And if there's an issue, you're not really sure where the issue is because you're stitching together multiple applications. And sometimes even when you do set up multiple tools, essentially you only get partial activity data, right? You might not get the roles, you might not get the actual users, you might not get detailed information in terms of when people last logged in and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where we see where some of the traditional tools fall short in terms of streamlining access reviews and taking away some of the complexities. So what makes us different? Like why are we trying to solve this problem, and how are we successful in solving this problem? And I think at our very core is that we start with 100% visibility. So if you look on the left side of the screen, you'll see that we have about 9 ways to actually integrate with your SaaS stack. And so what we can do because of that, we're going to paint a more holistic picture across your access and application landscape. So for example, we'll have direct integration with your HR systems, with your finance apps, with your CASBs, with your agents. So because we have so many ways to integrate with your SaaS stack, we can give you 100% visibility into all of your users, your maps, your access maps, your activity, and your risk, right? So on the left side, you see kind of the points that we integrate with. And on the right side, you see the output in terms of what we can give you. So we can give you detailed information on users, groups, departments, source, activity, cost, etc. And that's why we are uniquely positioned to help you streamline your access reviews, because we give you direct integration in one platform versus you having to kind of stitch together multiple applications that might not give you the whole picture, because we give you essentially a holistic picture. So as I mentioned, we do give you the multiple level reviews in a single unified platform. So essentially we call it kind of our single source of truth, because what you're going to see in this single source of truth is you're going to see information on 100% application user visibility, which I just talked about. We do have a simple to use campaign builder. So it's a point and click campaign builder. You don't have to use any code. We give you the contextual control over the reviews. And we also give you audit-ready reports, which again, makes it easier for you to meet your compliance standards. And when you're going to see all of this in the demo that Michael is going to go over. But I think a couple things to call out here, right? On the simple and easy to use campaign builder, essentially it's really an effortless UI that helps you set up these campaigns in minutes and not hours. So again, it saves you significant time. The other thing in terms of looking at the contextual control over the reviewed levels is that we ensure that each reviewer at every level justifies every decision before the handoff goes to the next person, right? And I think that is one of the key issues that I mentioned earlier, is that if there's multiple people involved, oftentimes reviewer 2 or 3 or 4 down the line might not have the context or might not know why a user is given this access. But we give you contextual control, so everybody at every level has a record of kind of what the logic behind why this person was given access or why they were denied access. And then again, as we have audit-ready reports, we generate those that you can immediately submit to your regulators with all the evidence collection, post reviews that are recorded, and they're also generated automatically. And as I mentioned, Michael will take you through all of this in the demo. So again, why do we get you ready, compliance ready fast? Our customers tell us that we help them with their access reviews, getting them 8 to 10x faster. As I mentioned, we have audit ready reports, and we also have zero touch remediation. So I think that's my last slide. So let's see it in action, because I'm sure that's why you're all here, is obviously not to hear me blather on about what we can do, but let's put the proof in the pudding, and Michael will show you how we can help you streamline your access reviews. So Michael, why don't you take it away?
All right. Thank you, Loretta, for that really good detailed walkthrough. Again, welcome everyone to the webinar and appreciate you joining us today.
I'll
So
stop sharing.
let me go ahead and share my screen and make sure I have no secrets on here showing anywhere. And all right. Okay, so all of you should be able to see my screen now. And as you land in Zluri, you'll see our beautiful landing page here with the overview screen here. And to access our access review page, simply go to the tab right here. When you land in this view, you'll immediately see the ongoing as well as upcoming and completed review. So you'll be able to go back and look at previously completed ones as well as all existing ongoing. And this is where you'll be able to create a new certification campaign. Now, before I jump into creating one, let me actually show you one that is in progress. That's actually completed the review stages. So you can see what that look like and what the experiences are there. So when you go into a review page, you'll see the overall review action, the status, and you'll see approved, revoked, modified, or pending. In this case, it's been 100% completed, so there's no more pending. The three status here, I'll give a little more context as we go into the actual view itself where you can toggle these, but it's pretty straightforward. Approve, they continue to have access. Revoke, they no longer have access. Modify, this is where you might have some changes, let's say permission changes or role change. So this review here is for one application. You can have multiple application inside one certification campaign, but you can see here they are multiple level. And so level one, usually this is where you have the line of business, the app owners. There's always the option for a fallback reviewer. And second level is, we've seen this where you have then the IT or department head, like you can, depending on your need, instill the additional level. Going into the detailed view, you'll see here, you have a granular list of the users that are part of the review process. And you'll be able to see their information. You'll also see their reviewer. And the column actually are customizable as well. I will show you that during the configuration phase. And on the right here, you'll see the completed action here. And so we also have quick insight toggle where you can see, for example, external user with access. If you toggle that, it'll show you just those users. As you can see in this access review, because of the external status, we went ahead and required some modification to their permission or access here, and you can designate those. You can even, we also provide a filter view of users with sensitive privilege. For example, if you're looking at more privileged access reviews. All right. So let's get into actual creating one from scratch so you can see how that work. So clicking on create new certifications. Straight away, you can give it a name. We'll select who's the owner for this certification campaign. You have a brief description, and then you'll be able to set up the reviewer flow. So let me give it a name real quick. We're going to use Zendesk as an example here. And access review. Owner, the main account that is on here. It's Michael Graham. And demo for the webinar. All right. So when you start setting up reviewers, you can set it by a role, which is defined within Zluri, and the people that are in those roles will be able to actually review. And then the fallback could be individual. So in this case, for the level one, I'm going to set it to application owner. And then for fallback, to keep it simple, I'll again use Michael Graham, who's the login user, who's the IT admin here. And now you can proceed to add a second layer, right? So this is where, like, as Laura mentioned, sometimes you have your line of business review, and then you have your central. Sometimes you have security or compliance GRC. So this is where you can create additional one. We can create up to 5, is if that's what you're thinking about, how many can you have? So for simplicity for the demo, I'm going to do just a second one. And this one, again, you can set it to a role, but you can also set it to individual users. So in this case, I'm going to actually set it to individual users. And Michael Graham. And then I'm going to have a fallback there. Okay, so once you're done here, you can always come back to here to set up while you're creating this certification campaign. Clicking on next will take you into the selection view for application. And you can see we do have a couple coming soon items up here. We've heard lots of feedback around, being able to do review based on groups, with some interest as well in resources, entitlement. So we're looking to introduce these in a future iteration of our access review capability. To add an application, pretty straightforward. Once you toggle it, you'll have a configuration navigation screen here that will give you the option to select. So in this case, like I said, we'll do Zendesk. All right. And automatically, the reviewer that were previously configured, that is automatically piped in. And if you do need to add additional one, let's say as you go through, you got notification or you understand additional layers required, you can still go ahead and add it here. And like I said, before you complete and launch the certification campaign, there are always the option to edit. And I'm going to keep it to the 2 level. Clicking on next. Now, this is where you will be able to select and refine users. Generally, everyone that is having access to this application will be listed here. And you have the base level information. You can do filter to actually refine it further. You can also, add additional columns later. So in this case, let's actually do a filter to the role so that we are only going to do review for admin. So you can here select user application role, and you can select admin and click apply. Now you notice that number dropped down to almost half. And so now only user who have the admin role is now going to have this review being done. And excuse me. And if you want to go further, like for example, we can also set up like, hey, external only or employee only, and so on. You can set filter based on the available data here. All right. Clicking on next will take us to the column config. So the column configuration here you see on the right, these are default ones that will always be there. And there are additional ones that you can select. For example, reporting managers. You can drag them to adjust like the view within. And excuse me, in this case, let's do last active on, and just want to actually also add discovered at. Okay, so you'll see that those are added to the end. And basically this column configuration here is going to be the view for your report that you can print out, the PDF, CSV as well. Now we support that you can have these information as part of the report for your compliance reporting. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. Now this is the fun part. So as you select either approve or revoke or modify, there are remediation automation that you can actually pre-configure and select. And we call them playbook. And basically within an application, you can set specific automation flows. Like for example, if they are being revoked, we can do an action to say remove user from Zendesk. And then if they're clicking on modified, right, it's like you can still use access, have access to Zendesk, but we need to make some changes. There's a automation flow that could be modify user access. And so this is basically going to trigger the remediation as you complete the certification review. All right, and that's the last step of the configuration to add an application. I'm going to go ahead and add application. Like I mentioned earlier, you can add multiple. So in this case, if you have another application you want to ask, like Slack, for example, you can go ahead and add those. You can go through again, you'll have the same flow as well as, adding user, selecting the user, all that jazz. But yeah, I'm going to exit it out, keep it simple for this demo, and just have one application here for Zendesk. Okay, so once you're ready from here and clicking on next, right, we'll take you to the final config screen, which is your review start date, your review end date, as well as your remediation end date. And so we have also heard feedback about being able to say as a template, something we'll be working on so we can reuse later. Today, you can clone certification reviews if you want to kick off a new one. All right, so I'm going to select the end date for end of the month. The start date is today. and then I'll select the end date for end of the month, and the remediation day will be after, and I'll just set it for 2 weeks. And then that is pretty much it. So create certification, we'll then kick it off. And at this stage, once it's created, it does lock in the certification campaign setting. So there won't be, you won't be able to add it or change it at this point. All right, clicking it in, you'll see, right, as the fresh campaign view, nothing has been done yet, so they're all pending record here. And you can go through the review flow here. You can see right now, this is only in first level review. And here we can see, all right, the action, right? You can approve. Like I said, you can give it a comment as well. You can modify access and say, hey, need to change role, for example. And then you can also simply revoke and say moving to a different team, right? That doesn't use this application anymore. All right. And so that's the general kind of going through. Now, if you have a lot of users right here, like for example, there are still at least another 17 on this view, and there's a total of 494. We do have the ability for you to do bulk action. And so if you know for the rest of the group that they are good to go, then you can simply select all. Select all in this case, we'll select just on the view, but we also give you the option to select everyone, right? That's in the scope. So, and then you can proceed to do bulk edit. Let me just select these guys because they're already done. And review action, right? You can also delegate review. So let's say if the reviewer needs to be delegated to backup or others, you can go ahead and do that here as well. And I'm going to simply approve for the rest to keep it simple for this demo. And again, and they can have access. All right. You'll get a quick notification here once the bulk edit is successful. Pretty click here. And yeah, that wraps up basically that first layer review, right? And so now you're gonna go ahead and sign off. You say, yep. And then once this is signed off, if you go back and they will trigger off the second level review. So I just did a quick refresh, but if you exit out, a different person log in, they'll be able to go in and do their review part. So now I'm in the second level review here, you can see, and the status and actions are already selected, but as a second reviewer, I can choose to change it. So if I say, hey, you know what, actually, for this person, they also moved team recently, so they don't need access anymore. So move to a different team. And go ahead and save. Now you see, now change to revoke. And then you can go ahead and do that with, right, as you go through the review again, just as a second level review. Those are all the action there. Once you're done, and I'm going to go ahead and click sign off again and confirm. All right. So once I sign off, right, everything is saved. The review is done, it's locked in. If I go back to ongoing certification, and you'll see here, this has now been done all the way through, right? There's one modified action that's pending. So what that's going to do, that's going to trigger a specific workflow. And when that workflow is finished, it will then proceed to conclude. So in the interest of time, let me just go ahead and come back here. Now, by clicking on conclude review, that basically will wrap up, right? So right now it's saying, hey, do you want to conclude, even though there's still that one remediation? The workflow is kicking in the background, I think. So I'm going to proceed without waiting for it to finish. But when you conclude it, this is where you'll see the kind of final result. Again, you can always go back to look at it. You can complete the certification, right? Anytime you have an option to clone. But when you click complete certification, yeah, it's saying that you can still proceed through. Let's say if you have to get the report out sooner, the action records are also going to be there. And you'll see now that access review available under complete certification section. And here you can go ahead and export. So I mentioned earlier, you can export a PDF, you can export CSV, and I'm just going to export it real quick to show you guys what that looked like. Reports being generated. In fact, I have one that is pre-populated already. I'll just switch to that. So this is the PDF report format you'll see, right? Completion report. You'll have all the certification detail information. You also have the review detail, access change detail, right? Based on if anything changed. And you also get the direct printout of each of the views. So it makes a compliance report submission quite straightforward, pretty easy. And you can give the PDF or the CSV to the auditors. All right. Cool. I think that generally is how you can perform a multi-level review. And I think with that, I'm going to wrap the demo part. I think there are a couple questions, so I'm going to get to the Q&A session so we can answer these as well. So as Loretta mentioned, right, a lot of the information that we shared today is available in this State of Access Review report from earlier this year. Highly encourage you to, scan the QR code, get you to the page to download, take a look, read some really insightful content in there. And with that, we'll move on to Q&A. Let me take a
Yeah,
look
Michael,
at
I'm
the
happy
chat.
to read out the questions, just so that
Yeah,
all
go
the
for it.
attendees can hear. So one of them is, can one of the reviewers be the user line manager?
Can one of the reviewers be the user line manager? Yes, you can be. So the thing though is if you yourself is in the reviewee table, you can't review yourself. Like that needs to be reviewed right by the secondary or fallback. But the reviewer, if it's a line of business manager, yeah, they can be. So like I showed earlier, either if they're already in a group or if they're an individual user, we can set that as a reviewer.
Cool. Second question, if the access is managed via a group within the application, but the group is actually managed on the IDP, i.e. Okta, in this case, should we update the group in Okta if we want to remove the user's access? Is this possible?
Yeah, so this is the powerful part about the playbook, right, for the remediation state. So within Zluri, you can actually set up these direct connection integration via API to do and perform these sort of workflow. And so you can set, yeah, if the user for themselves is removed or is revoked, right, the playbook can be going into Okta and adjust or change. So through the playbook part is where we can remediate, and this is I believe, yeah, doable.
Great. A couple more questions, which is, I think one of these you answered, but I'll ask it anyway. How many stages of reviewers can we add on Zluri? I think the answer is up to 5. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, up to 5.
Okay. And then another question, how does Zluri fetch cost and department information?
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, sorry. How does Zluri fetch cost and department information?
Yes. So we integrate with, a lot of different application, right? So as Loretta mentioned, we have integration capabilities with HR system as well as spend system. So those kind of integration allow us to get also contractual information. We provide you the option to upload. All that is in the scope of how you can actually understand the spend. The usage will come from the direct integration with the application, third-party application themselves. And that's where we can actually verify, right? Is this an active user? And is this the active license being used up? And that's where, if you go into application optimization, you'll see more information and insights on that front.
Cool. I think those are all the questions that we have. If anybody wants to put in another question really quick, we have time to take it. We'll just wait a couple seconds to see if folks want to type in any other questions. Nope, don't see any. So yeah, so definitely appreciate your time. Thanks for taking out the time to learn more about our multi-level access reviews. And again, I think Shahul has put in the chat The link to get your copy of the Access Reviews. Again, it's a lot of great reading again, and it's created with an independent research firm. So the only reason why I mention that is because obviously sometimes folks are very suspect of information that comes from the vendor. But this is created with an independent research firm. So it has a lot of good information in terms of kind of what the state is and ways to improve your access review process. So I think with that, if there are no more questions, again, I just want to thank you for your time, and I think we'll end the webinar then. Thanks, Michael, also for that awesome demo. And again, if you have think of any questions, post this demo. Feel free to come to our site and reach out to us or contact us, and we'll be happy to answer. And also, we will be sending each of you a copy of the recorded copy of this webinar as well. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.